right. Hello, everyone. Hello to our listeners. Hello to our viewers. Hello, Max. How's it going?
Good, good. It feels like we haven't done one of these in a while. I don't know if I'm just crazy busy at the moment or we actually haven't, but it feels like it's been a while.
Same. It feels no. We did one last week. We did
I know.
literally one last Monday. But yeah, no. I feel you. It feels like it's been going on nonstop. We didn't hide our guest in hindsight, so it's no surprise. So that was well done, Max. Okay. So anyway, there will be no surprise, but I'll still introduce him. So today we have Augustas Kligys, who is well known in the Amazon space as the Amazon Summits guy. I basically most people, especially who live in Europe, who are sellers, have definitely at least attended the European Seller Conference in Prague. But he is also organizing so many different events, and sort of his mission is just to create these like powerfully informative expert sessions and to curate the best guides in the space to help Amazon sellers. He's also the man behind the Orange Click company. And yeah, hi, Augustus. Really great to have you here.
Hello, Joe. Hello, Max. Nice to. I want to say nice to have you here, but it's nice to be having by someone as well.
Great to have you.
Yeah, finally, you are on the hot chair instead of
Mm,
Yeah,
everyone
yeah,
else
yeah.
on your hot chairs.
yeah.
Um,
I
so
just
I
say
want
thank you. Like I think you recently organized a virtual event,
Summit.
which was just incredible. And what I really loved is when you had these never done before. You kind of like paired up people on similar
Yeah,
topics, which was great because I was with Vanessa, and it challenges you to kind of bounce ideas off someone else and kind of just like combine. I'll admit this. Everyone kind of has the same presentation that they kind of update over time in the different events, but like when you're doing it with someone else, you're kind of combining it in with someone else. So yeah, it was a really cool event, and I'd
thank you.
encourage everyone to check out the YouTubes on that.
Yes, it was called Sellerfest Online, and we're preparing for another one in November.
yeah, no,
Oh,
it
there
was
we go.
great.
I look forward to my invite.
Wink, wink. So Augustus, actually, I want to start with just asking you, how did you become the Amazon Summits guy? Like, basically, where does your path come from in this space?
I would say I'm Amazon Summits guy because we wrote this in the bio some years ago. But I would say that it's true that probably myself and with the team, we organized the most amount of virtual and in-person events in Amazon industry. And it started 8 years ago. Or maybe it started many years ago when I was still digital nomad, like, 20 years ago or 18 years ago, I was traveling with a USB stick, programming websites on PHP. And I was doing this for so long and I was so like bored of this but I couldn't find what else I can do. Then we got a child with my wife 12 years ago. So I had to continue programming, but I was so tired of it. So I was always kind of scouting for what else I can do. And I was like just sitting on the computer and like, yeah, browsing internet, what else is possible. And about 9 years ago, somebody told me about Amazon FBA business model, which sounded really incredible, but I had no money, or I could invest 500 euros, which had like, I realized after a few weeks research that with 500 euros, it would be really difficult to do anything. I could have sold like SIM card adapters at that time was very relevant, when you buy a mini SIM card and you need to put adapter for all the phone. So I didn't start that, but I was following for the like half a year, 1 year, all the Facebook groups, and everybody was talking about Amazon Europe, but everybody kind of asking questions about American. And then I saw this virtual summit business model, free virtual summit, and you can make money and make audience. I didn't understand how you can make money with free virtual summit, but this is what I did. And the idea of making money is by selling recordings, and virtual summit is possible to watch only for a limited time for 24 hours. So this is what I thought. Okay, let me try to do a virtual summit about Amazon FBA in Europe. and this is how my first virtual event, was presented in 2016, exactly 8 years ago in September. And yeah, I think I was the first in Amazon private label sellers industry to suggest this kind of learning format. And for the whole week you can watch 25, 30 experts, like webinars. It was pre-recorded, but still it was something new. I was started to be followed by all the like Manicodes from Helium 10. Kevin King like is following me. Like everyone was on that event, all the like kind of gurus and owners of big software companies. And then they started to reach out to me. When is your next show? We want to be on your next. And half a year later, I got like another one with 40 speakers. So I started to do these virtual summits. But very soon I got bored after 2 years, and I felt I want to do in-person event. And in 2019, the flagship European Seller Conference in Prague was born, and it is still the strongest event we have done in person one. But now, 8 years later, I think we have done like 11 virtual and 11 in-person events. And in-person events were in 5 countries: in Portugal, in Israel, Lithuania, Prague, Amsterdam. And yeah, we are still a very small team, so we're not like very productive in events, but whenever we do, we try to make it really good.
Do you mind if I ask you a tough question? I love getting into the tough questions.
Yeah.
So, apart from being in Europe, which is obviously a plus, how are you thinking about adapting summits with Amazon Accelerate kind of coming and growing? Me and Joe just hot off the plane from Accelerate a few weeks ago. It's an incredible event, and obviously it's put on by Amazon, so you're getting a bunch of launch announcements there. So how are you thinking about kind of, I don't know, adapting or changing or the business in terms of
Accelerate was in US. There are no events in Europe, like good events. I know Joy is speaking tomorrow at some event in Sweden, but this no, not rubbish. But in Europe, especially in America, it's very easy to make to collect crowd in the event, because if mentally for American people, it's much easier to travel 6 hours by airplane from east to west. I don't know how many hours it takes, but I think like several hours to fly. Then for, let's say, Lithuanian or Ukrainian or Polish person to fly to Portugal, it's the same maybe distance, the same travel, but it's much mentally more difficult, because in Europe we live in our own bubbles within each country. And the UK people only know what's happening in UK. Germans know what's happening in Germany, and plus language barriers. So of course, Germans mostly are following German language influencers and going to those events. And what we try to do in Europe is I traveled myself, like I recently was in my 69th country, like 2 weeks ago in Serbia. And I know, I used to travel a lot, and I know how important it is to kind of to live without borders and to meet people from other cultures, mindsets. So that's what we are trying to do in Europe. It's very challenging to bring international people to event in one European country. It's pretty easy if you're a German influencer to make German event, and you will get 500 people in the German event if it is in German. But what we're doing, for example, in Prague, we're getting 200 people, but like only 5 from Czech Republic, and 97% to Prague are coming from other countries. They cross the border. And some companies or people try to maybe do similar events when they try to make it international, but it's pretty hard to get people to travel in Europe. If Amazon would do it in Europe, I think Amazon events, I haven't been, but it's an Amazon event. It's a bit maybe more formal. It's only maybe talking a lot about them. But in our events, a lot of different experts have possibility to go on the stage. It's more tough for Prague event, but if we do like non-Prague event, like we did in Lithuania, for example, a few times. Lithuania is my home country, that's why. Or we did in Lisbon 2 times. So it's a little bit more easier. but I don't say that our events were all successful. Prague event, it's for us very difficult to compete with our own Prague event, because even in my home country, where I didn't live for many years or still don't live, we managed to get only 130 people, and like 70 from Lithuania and 50 or 60 from abroad. And still I don't understand, like, so this, we're the most proud about European Seller Conference in Prague, but all other events was kind of struggle for us as well, and that's why we are on and off with other events. We are not like so excited as with the Prague.
And actually, I've spoken with a lot of sellers who sometimes have the impression that pretty much all information they can get online. Conferences and events take a lot of time. They obviously, you have to invest in transport, in staying there, and so forth. Why should sellers in 2024 go to conferences? What is the benefit in your perspective, and like what I guess is the difference between going to a live conference versus just attending a sort of a online event?
So yeah, if you are looking only at the content and the titles of representations, most likely it will be people you see online, and they presented maybe in another conference the same, or on some webinar or the similar thing. So in terms of content, you will not get very powerful insights in cheap and mid-priced conferences, I would say. Even in our Prague event, maybe, like, I sometimes get complaints, yeah, everything was fine, but not all the speakers were good. But it's very if you want to have a very strong content, you should risk to invest like 5 figures in like masterminds, which are happening, or even 4 figures, which Kevin King is doing, or Howard Tai. You can go to these. There is more possibility that content-wise it will be much stronger, because usually they have awards, prizes for the best speakers. So speakers are really competing for the best thing. But physical events, I think, normally should be not for learning content, but more for networking with other people. And it's very difficult to do virtually. At least it's possible to do virtual in a small private groups, but as an organizer of virtual summit, we tried to do this kind of networking, but with the Amazon sellers amount, the traffic which we get in a virtual event, it was not very effective to do this virtual networking. So networking is the most powerful, I think, and this is where actually one of the people who applied to speak at our next conference in Prague, he said that he's seller himself, and he attended few of our events, and he told, according to him, that his company grew like 2 times last year, and they expect another 2 times this year, just because he met some people and talked to some people in our events, and in Prague and in Lisbon. And yeah, he was pitching to present strategies he learned, or something like that. But this is where he learned behind the scenes, not from the stage, but when he talked to other people. So I think if somebody haven't been in the events, I think first target should be kind of to meet new people and to increase your network. I think it's good to go to some event where it's completely new. You are interested in a topic, so you get like some basic information. And for example, I live in South Portugal, and now this week is happening the Nomads World event with like 150 digital nomads. So I literally, before this interview, was like 2 hours ago sitting in an auditorium of one municipality, listening to these presentations of different kind of nomad projects, or a YouTuber who talks about nomading. So I'm interested in that topic. I didn't make valuable connections because actually they didn't have many breaks. It was like from 9 to 2 p.m. just talks every 30 minutes. This is what we're also learning in our event. For example, last year in Prague, we thought we kind of have a perfect like agenda, but some sponsors said they would like a longer breaks. So next year we are bringing making longer breaks so people can not network more, especially with sponsors. We are bringing less speakers so that speakers don't have. In the last years, we had like 30-minute presentations, but now we'll have like a bit longer, 40, 45 minutes, so they can go in more depth with strategies. So in our events, we're also like trying to find different angles and trying to test different things. And that's why I also go to other kind of events as an event organizer to learn new things, and I learn new things. Even this week in this nomad world, it was very cheap and very cheaply made event because it's probably they are doing without any profit. But I learned one thing. I saw a stand for TV on the stage, which I thought we could get on our stage. That kind of stand for the TV, for the for the presenter to see the slides. And the same, Amazon seller going to Amazon events or meetups, they can also learn one or two things. And what I noticed is that successful sellers, they consume a lot of these webinars, and even it's a webinar by the person they know or presentation on the stage, they still listen by hoping to get this like one sentence hack out of 30 minutes presentation. And this is, I think, how these successful sellers are growing and managing to, make their business successful.
It's true, and what I have noticed when I've been to a lot of these conferences is indeed, generally, when you network with other sellers, they are quite helpful and open to share advice, especially if you have an issue that you can resolve. You can literally, you can be kind of anonymous in a way of like what you're selling, but you can still ask about the problem you have. And a lot of people might have experienced the same problem that you have, and they are very open to like share their experience and help. So I found that the networking part and sort of learning from how other people have grown the most sort of interesting and informative part of a conference.
And it's not only other attendees are open up, but also the speakers which are on the stage. They are obviously on the stage. Sometimes they cannot reveal hacks, it's too risky for them because we are recording, or people can start, sharing like screenshots or something of the slide they don't want. So if you have a possibility to eat lunch with that person, with the speaker, the expert in that field, you might get like really good nuggets. And for example, I have a friend who's Amazon seller, and he goes to events. Basically, he looks at the agenda, but he doesn't really, he wants to know who is presenting and what. So, okay, that guy is presenting about finances. I have financial problems in my business. I will go to that event. I don't care what he's presenting, but I want to talk to him, to that presenter. So that friend, he's like already always have a list to which speakers he wants to talk personally. He doesn't really care about their presentation. So that's another hack.
I mean, this kind of like after hour networking, this is honestly what I was expecting. What I was expecting you to say to my question about Accelerate, because it's so true that there's value not just in the well, I think the two things I was expecting you to say was, firstly, like Amazon obviously presenting stuff, but they kind of give like big broad brush strokes, and then they kind of scuttle away and they don't tell you any of the details, and it's kind of like you're left wondering like, oh my god, like how are they going to implement title personalization? Like that's a crazy thing. He just dropped and then kind of left. But then secondly, like definitely the after hour networking, it's so valuable. And that's definitely true. Like as you say, in Europe, we're not like America. When I was in America, I drove like 8 hours and I was in the same state going from like San Francisco to LA. Like it's crazy, right? Like we just don't do that in Europe, and we're kind of adverse to kind of crossing the borders. So yeah, I agree with what you're saying. My question is, how can like what should different sellers at like different stages of their business, what kind of different events do you think is best for them?
There are a lot of things. Some beginners, there is a possibility to accept advanced knowledge. So if it's a beginner, for them, like 5-figure masterminds might be very tough to understand what people are talking about. And it doesn't mean that beginners don't have money. Sometimes I had like beginners buying VIP tickets, and already on the VIP day in our event, which VIP day is usually before the main conference, they were like happy, jumping around, saying they got all the answers by talking to other VIP sellers. So if budget is not a problem, I think you have to like select by your, if you're a beginner, like go to the kind of cheap and mid priced range to events. If you already 1 year in the business and you know you have like a product and you know how it's functioning, the whole Amazon, then I think like mid range and even like high ticket masterminds will be suitable if budget is not an issue. But if it's a problem with the budget and you don't want to invest a lot, I would start always with the local meetups. So we have this website amzsummits.com where we, for I think 6 or 7 years, collecting manually events, conferences, in person and virtual around the world in for Amazon private label sellers mostly. And there is on this amzsummits.com at the top a section local meetups. So if you go there, there is a list of 200 or 300 meetup groups on meetup.com website. Maybe many English speaking people know meetup.com. It's popular, I think, in English speaking countries, very popular. So in America or UK, Australia, and in some other places, you can find meetup groups, and I would suggest to start there. And I think it's good like for beginners and already like kind of with some small experience sellers to go to these meetups, because again, it's networking. And I personally lived in Spain like 4 or 5 years ago in south of Spain near Malaga. And I thought, okay, I will organize on meetup.com Malaga Amazon seller event. And I did like 4 meetups every half a year. I was not very happy about the outcome. We got like 6 people, me and like, I don't know, somebody coming with a wife. So it's like 1 person extra and 3 more. And from the outcome, from the number of people, was very sad for me as an organizer, because you have to put like at least several hours and mental energy into sending reminders to meetup.com subscribers and so on. But in one meetup, some guy came from Madrid. For him was like 6-7 hours drive to the south. I said, "What are you doing here?" He said, "There is nothing happening in Madrid, so I saw this event and I decided to come." So he came, and he is kind of a bit of Amazon seller, but he's also had a merchandise company. So I ended up working with him, and since then I'm ordering my merchandise for the conferences, backpacks or notebooks with logo from the guy in Madrid. So I'm working with him. And then the next time when I did meetup, I met Lisette, which you know, she's hosting videos, but she came with her partner to the meetup because she was in the area, spending like 2 months in Spain. And she saw there is a meetup. And then we got to know each other. And then after a few months, I thought, look, this girl knows what she's doing, because she was working with Amazon sellers as a kind of virtual assistant at the beginning and then strategic partner. And then I thought like, she likes to kind of explain things. So I offered her to host our videos, and now we work with her like for 5 years. So you never know what will be the outcome.
Nice.
Yeah. My kind of come up came from these meetups as well, literally from the AMZ website. So when we just launched a business, I started going to these just to kind of this is 2 years ago, just to speak to Amazon sellers, not really just to sell them anything, just to kind of understand like their outlook on things. And they were like super useful. And I met someone there who introduced me to Danny McMillan. Danny McMillan put me on seller sessions. After being on seller sessions, kind of like, invites from Norm to go on, invites from Kevin King, invites, so it all kind of came from going to one of these meetups. So yeah, just I can highly recommend them.
Yes.
I'm actually curious, because you've done this for quite a while now. I mean, quite a while in the Amazon world. Like, how has the sort of the conference and the events landscape changed in this time? Like, would you say that pretty much everything is as when you started, or have you seen things getting more advanced, more innovative?
So I think, like in terms of, let's say, number of events, America was always great in terms of what is happening. So really invite Amazon sellers in US that they always have some selection. In Europe, it was always very hard situation, and I think the most consistent are our event in Prague, Danny Macmillan's in UK, and also Tommy Rabinovich Top Dog Summit. These are actually the top 3 events I always recommend in Europe, and they have different kind of angles. But and the same in US. There are some. Now I'm just there is a Prosper show which is like the most consistent, and now I'm trying to AMZ Innovate. I think is another quite consistent event, but the rest of events in US, in Europe, are on and off. So somebody, maybe Max from Ecomtent, he wants to get clients, so he organizes an event. He does this one time. He sees it's a lot of work, but it didn't work so well. But he tries again next year, and then after there is no this event third year because people realize that it takes so much focus out of your current business when you want to build service for sellers, and if you start creating event, it takes a lot of like energy, and also it's very can be like very rare that it's profitable. Like if you want to do a great event with a lot of like fireworks and everything, then it's probably not profitable, and you just have to think if what you're doing next. So this is what I saw in all these 8 years, like on and off. So some influencer pop up and they create events. It's for 3-4 years, exciting, and then influencer sells his Amazon business, or he's not providing any more service, so he's not interested in doing event, and it dies. Or for example, Helium 10 Sell and Scale. It looked so they tried to do. I think they intended to do again and again, but they did just one time. Maybe they had a big loss with their stars, and then it got silent. So it's very hard to do events. So the most I recommend to go to these consistent events. If it's consistent, it means like it's always improving, and it's getting just better. If some first or second time event pops up, you can be a little bit skeptic that maybe speakers will be not good, because such events very easily get, anyone sign up as a speaker who is asking to be a speaker. It's more difficult to get as a speaker, like let's say in Prosper Show. So many people ask me like, do you have introduction? Can you make introduction with Prosper Show people? I said, I don't know, I cannot, because these people, experts want to talk there. And but I would say like in terms of events, it was always the same. Maybe the kind of the audience is changing. In the past, because it was much more easier, so you could find maybe more beginners who are going to events, and they know they will get like return of investment. But now people, Max disappeared. But now people, it's much more difficult to get as a beginner to start growing your business. So I think there are more people who are already experienced and who are really calculating if their trip to the event will bring return of investment for them, and then they so I think now maybe more experienced people are going to events, and
So what are some of your biggest takeaways from the event, like the biggest mind-blowing kind of impact that you've seen have either on yourself or on Amazon sellers businesses?
Impact for Amazon sellers who are going to events, or
like some of the biggest takeaways, like the biggest nuggets of wisdom, like any examples?
So I mentioned this guy who was he's pitching to speak at our event, who said that our events helped him to double, and probably this year again to double his business. But it's not only our event. Sometimes even maybe my biggest kind of suggestion, like don't procrastinate and go to your first event if you haven't participated. And it doesn't matter what event, just whatever is available nearby, or if you have budget, like just fly to the next available dates in your calendar and experience an event. And from one, I follow on LinkedIn a lot of like Amazon people who are speaking at events or participating. And even though like me from I see that event, I see from pictures or from like some other things, I think like maybe it was not very strong event, but I always see happy people. Of course, some people are posting just because they want to post something positive, but I think it's true that no, even if the event, maybe event organizers didn't have experience, if they didn't have a professional organizer, or something else failed, sometimes moderator is not very good, or some big technical issues, but at the end people remember this event, and I think they get like something at least. For example, we had event 4.5 years ago during COVID in 2020 in March. It is when the whole world was breaking. We had our second European Seller Conference. We're supposed to have like over 200 people. It was like people were buying tickets like never before. But 1 month before it stopped because in Italy started this COVID breakout, as they announced in the news. And people stopped selling. And at the end, we got just 100 stopped buying. And at the end, we got just 130 people physically coming to the event. But even now, when some of these people come back to our events and they say that event was epic, they still remember. And maybe it had like some, how to say, maybe if there are even negative emotions from like very bad events, so this emotion will remind you about people you met in that event, or maybe something you still learned on the stage. So I always encourage to go to the events, and I think most hesitation comes from people who have never participated in any industry event, and they don't know the power of basically meeting people one-on-one. And the bigger the crowd, I don't know how it's Prosper Show, maybe it's already diluted, but if it's like event of 200, 500 people, you feel that energy. And like I remember 2 years ago, one of our attendees said in testimonial that when you're inside this energy, these kind of ideas, they come, it's like this consciousness, like you are inside that kind of the whole energy, and it comes automatically, these kind of ideas and people you need to talk to. So yeah, I always encourage to visit events.
Yeah, I feel incredibly revitalized, motivated, kind of inspired after I go to one of those seller events because, yeah, I mean, firstly, you just are in an amazing crowd. Everyone's a seller and entrepreneur, and and I think Amazon sellers by default are incredibly innovative because I think selling on Amazon is a difficult game. So you have to kind of think around the corners to find solutions. And so being around this sort of, kind of like a bit of a hustle culture, but also like incredibly, hardworking people who kind of most of the time started from scratch, from like nothing, out of a completely different path. I find that super motivating, and I normally feel so kind of inspired after these events. So here's the question. It's like, okay, so let's say I'm a seller. I want to find a good conference or a mastermind. How would you say people should go about that? How would people find all of this information?
No, yeah, sometimes you don't know how, maybe if you're a new seller, new in the space, you don't really know if, let's say, some event you see advertised is maybe consistent event, how good it could be. If you haven't been in any event, I would encourage to go to the first event, no matter where is it, and just according to your budget and your travel distance possibilities, just go. But if you want to be selective, one possibility is to talk to other sellers who attended events, and especially, if seller is in the industry for 3-4 years, they usually know the best events, so they have attended some, and they also talk to other sellers who were at other events. So I think it's the best, to get feedback from people, other sellers in your network. People can email me if they are listening to this. I can also give my unbiased opinion. I'm not about promoting our events, but I can share my opinion sometimes about because I also kind of follow what's happening, and I can feel if that organizer has experience in doing event. But it's not only about event organizing, it's sometimes about maybe simply by looking at the agenda. If it's like 2-day event and there are only 5 speakers, so you can have one expectation. But if it's one day and there are like 20 speakers and there are such events, then it can be a bit different expectation. So yeah, it also depends maybe what you want. If you are completely new, I think for that person both are good, the content and the networking. If person is more advanced and experienced, they are more skeptically look at the agenda, and they probably evaluate the other attendees coming to the event and if it's worth for them to go. So and the price is very good filter to understand what kind of audience will come. If I think there are some events in UK where maybe they charge £50 for 1-day conference. So there you can expect a lot of beginners. And but for example, in our event in Prague, people have to pay about 500-600 euros or more for 2 days. So, and plus it's Prague, it's Czech Republic. There are no sellers in that country almost. So everybody's traveling. So it's additionally accommodation, flight costs. You cannot just go hop in the car and come. Maybe Germans can, but most people just flying and stay longer. So it's additional cost. So it's maybe 1,500 euros investment. And then for such investment, obviously, no, we don't have many beginners. So yeah, I would use this kind of criteria to evaluate what can be a good fit for me as a seller.
Cool. Apologies a bit for my Wi-Fi, but my last question on my side, Augustus. We're an AI podcast. Haven't mentioned AI yet. Going to talk about the metaverse because maybe it's kind of relevant to your area. So, how are you thinking? Like, have you spent any time thinking at all about how like events could change in the future? You know, with like the all the Oculus and kind of Apple's headsets and all this stuff. Like, have you spent any time thinking about how this could what it could look like for you in 5-10 years time?
I didn't think very much like in depth, but I have a feeling that especially in events industry, physical events industry, will not change much, because there will be always like people who are not excited about these kind of extra devices on your head where you see just half of the real world. And I'm also not excited. We don't encourage this kind of thing for our child, for example. And I think that like you cannot kind of technologically, you can bring the knowledge maybe through technology. Let's say speakers don't need to travel and they look like three-dimensional speaker on the stage, but you cannot speak to that speaker probably at the lunchtime. And even you can speak virtually with some kind of three-dimensional maybe thing, but that should be arranged. And when it's arranged, like most things in-person events happen spontaneously, and you don't know when. Sometimes you meet at the bathroom, and you just start talking. So I have a feeling that physical events will stay almost like they are, and they will be maybe even more valuable in the near future when there will be much more technology, and technology will be doing a lot of things for you. And then, like your business is automated, you're getting money. But I know some people who used to be sellers, they sold money, they have a lot of money, but now they are like a bit struggling to find, another. They have so much money that they cannot find another idea which would bring so much money, and working on the idea which brings good money, but for them it's not useful, the money. So they are looking for other, things to do. So there will be always, I think, this power of one-to-one contact. And maybe, in the events we will be using some kind of some apps with AI which can help to meet other people. But again, you will meet in person with the help of AI, let's say. They will match you much more perfectly. But you will still, if you don't attend the event, you will not meet that person, you will not shake the hand.
Well, fair enough. I like a bit of good pushback on every other.
Mm.
Most of our other guests are kind of all up in the AI hype with me and Joe, so it's fair enough to push back on it. So Augustas, if people want to reach out to you, find your events, where should they go?
Maybe first they should go to mzsummits.com. It's a website which I personally started 6 or 7 years ago when I was living in Germany, and I didn't know. I wanted to go to some event, and I didn't know what events are happening, and I started to bookmark in a text file. Okay, this event in Germany, this event in Ukraine, this event in Poland, this event in US. And at the end, when I had a list of 20, 30 events, I said and some events are repeating every year. I started this website. So yeah, we are still doing it manually. And I encourage to go there, look what's happening in the industry. And if they want to see what we're doing, they can find us at Orange Click YouTube channel or website. And we are happy to meet Amazon sellers at our most important event and most beloved event by our team and probably by sellers in Europe is European Seller Conference in Prague. And next one is in March 5 to 8 in 2025.
Awesome. Thank you so much for Augustas for being our guest. It was really so interesting to actually get to know you and how you've come to this path and learn more about conferences. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, it was nice to chat with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.